I have no qualm sharing it to anybody. I don't care. I'll talk to husbands who are dealing with it, and I'll be like, yeah, so if I hold it to myself, I'm not allowing somebody else to realize that they can have an amazing miracle. I've become bold to go, yeah, I did. And I'm not going to shy away from it anymore. We got to stand up and say, we've gone through stuff. Is it great that I was introduced to it at 12 years old and didn't know what I was looking at? No. Did it almost destroy our marriage? Yes. Has it? No. And this is what happened.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to sit back and be like, oh, maybe I'll say it, maybe I won't. Like, let's just get into it and let's just speak it. And hopefully it shook them a little bit and to go, oh, wow, this is coming in the way, and I can't get close and connected with my spouse if I'm looking at this stuff.
Well, thank you for joining us. This is Backstage with Randy Phillips. I am Randy Phillips, and I'm joined by the incredible Alisa. Been working on that. Alisa and Tony DiLorenzo with One Extraordinary Marriage. Welcome, guys.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Wow.
Truly
I can't
an
believe
honor.
I get to sit here with you. It's just, I've been following you for so long.
Thank you.
What an honor for me. And we just came out of an marriage encounter here at my church in Austin. And there were hundreds of couples in there. And, I've been set through some of these, but man, y'all are at the top.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Does it ever get old just talking about the same old things? Marriage kind of is cyclical, isn't it? Just like the same issues.
Well, you see a lot of the same issues, but we're constantly growing and changing. Tony and I have been married for 28 years. And while we may have had communication problems at the start, where they are 28 years later, it's just different communication problems. And we still have to be able to learn and have a willingness to learn how to strengthen them and learn what it is that we need to do in this season.
That's great. Tony, do you enjoy this life of traveling the country, speaking at different churches, different venues? Of course, you do cruises. You do, dear Lord, you're everywhere all the time.
Yeah, we love it. One is because we got started with the One Extraordinary Marriage show, the podcast 15 years ago.
It's great.
And so when we started, everything was behind a microphone. And over the years, we've been blessed to meet those couples that have been impacted. And as you said, we were just at the marriage encounter and we had couples coming up to us who were like, we've been listening to you for 8 years.
Love that.
And, I've been around like marriages that are being impacted. And the husband's telling me this. He's like, I just find an episode and I go, I know they got a lot, but just listen to this one.
Yeah.
And so that encourages me. And I don't know, I'm an extrovert. I love being around people. So on that regard, I think, it's just like being with Alisa, getting to do this and then seeing these couples, you're just like, man, God's doing amazing work.
When you come off of the stage after pouring into my life and our couples' lives for 2.5 hours, do you feel, I feel excited about what we did, or is it draining, or how do you feel when you come off the stage? Because this is backstage stuff.
It's actually a really beautiful moment.
Okay.
Because over the course of 2 hours, as we're talking about each one of the 6 pillars, you can see couples kind of go on this arc of evaluating what's going on in their own marriage. And so we come off the stage and we have those opportunities, whether we're signing books or we're taking pictures or we're just hearing a couple's journey. And it's so energizing to see what is happening and how couples are getting a hold of, in particular, the 6 pillars of intimacy framework and stepping into this place of saying, I can do it. I can do something new in my marriage. And that's exciting.
Well, I send newly married people to you.
Yes.
I ought to be on commission.
Yeah.
I feel like I should be on commission.
We'll need to set something up.
Bought and given away hundreds of your books, 6 Pillars of Intimacy. I feel like I should be on commission.
We'll see what we can work with that.
Talk about that at dinner, maybe.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
I can figure that out for you.
So I send newly married to you, but I send people that have been married for many years to you. And whether they're newly married or been married a long time, they both come back and tell me the same thing. They changed my life. You changed my life. And I thank you.
Well, we're honored.
Thank you.
We don't take that responsibility lightly.
Nope.
We know that when a couple or a church lets us into their lives, it comes with great responsibility to cherish who they are and what they're going through, and to create a space where it's safe to be vulnerable, to be transparent, and to have the hard conversations.
And for us at One Extraordinary Marriage, our mission is impact one marriage.
Well, you've done that.
But I think sometimes, I know we've done that, but I think, when you are on stage, I think a lot of it becomes about you sometimes.
Yeah, it does.
And you've been around. And I think it puts us in a place where we go, can we impact one marriage? Like you said, hundreds of couples there.
Hundreds.
And yet, if we can just look at one couple and go, they came out of here in 30, 60, 90 days, their marriage is radically transformed. What happens?
I can't wait.
And probably there's going to be more, right?
Yeah.
You're going to see more. But if we just stand up there and we just go, who's the one couple?
Yeah.
Who's going to move? I think it just centers us, and it's not about us anymore.
Yeah.
It's about them.
Thank you. There was a couple I saw in the audience. You know how this is. You've been doing this a long time, as I have. They get through the holidays, and then they decide January we're splitting. So there was a couple, and I've been like, don't split yet. Give me to February. I knew y'all were coming.
Yeah.
I said, I'll pay your way. Please be there as a favor to me. So they were there today.
May I share a story?
Do what?
May I share a story? Because there was another couple that was there that could have been their story 5 years ago. And they started listening to One Extraordinary Marriage. They got their hands on 6 pillars. And so what you did for this couple today, this other couple showed up 5 years later with a smile on their face and saying, we are more in love and we are happier now than we've ever been. And we've completely revamped our marriage. So I just want to say to you, that encouragement to the couple that you saw, because we know the first Tuesday after Christmas, the first Tuesday in January is the highest divorce filings of the year.
Unbelievable. They were headed there.
They were headed there.
Can you give me to February? End of February, and then you can do what you need to do. So I'm going to track them. I'm going to see. I didn't want to look at them, too obvious, but there was so much emotion there.
Sure.
Beautiful. And as you all just, what, I'm amazed at you how I'm kind of raw and authentic and transparent. It makes people nervous here sometimes, but I was so surprised how transparent. Did you find that tough early on to say, are we going to put this out there?
So I will share in between our 3rd and 4th episode. So we're going all the way back to 2010. We'd received a message from somebody that was really just kind of questioning us. Like, who are you? Why should I listen to you? What do you bring to the table? And so in episode 4, we laid out our journey.
Oof.
We talked about the pornography. We talked about the loss of a child. We talked about our debt. And I remember Tony saying in that episode, our commitment to you, our audience, is that we will be always open, honest, and transparent.
Well, you are.
And so we continue to practice it. Sometimes we have to work through our own stuff before we can share it with the one family. But it is a commitment because people crave authenticity.
They do.
And if, I'm sure you found, just like we found, if we can be authentic, that's when people get unlocked.
True.
And I have found with authenticity too, and you probably saw it a little bit today, if we can get real, we can get honest, we can get deep, and we can just allow people to to feel again, get some emotion, and then bring some laughter into it.
Yeah, no, that's fun.
It just brings this sort of like, oh, we can laugh about this too. And I think it's, Pastor Randy, it's been a journey, and I do believe it's just God has given us an ability, a talent, and we had to step in it. And we've had to continue to step in that and go, okay, this is what you called us to do. And Alisa even said it. There are times when we've gone through our own stuff, and in the moment we don't talk about it because we're still working through it. And yet after we work through it, we're like, we need to talk about this because somebody else is going through this and they need to hear it on the other side, not when we're going through it, but on the other side.
Yeah.
And those are some of the episodes that come out where people are like, oh my gosh, that's exactly where we are right now in our lives. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Answering your own altar call. I feel like that sometimes. You probably know what that means. Just like after I preach something, like, I feel like I'm the one that needs to go pray.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I pastor here in Austin, 7 different churches, and I was doing a marriage, preaching on marriage, and I'm about almost 40 years with my beautiful wife.
Yes.
Denise. I got the beautiful today. That was beautiful. How you said that. I'll come back to that. But I was teaching on helping people with marriages, and I got your Instagram, and I put it up on the big screen, and it was streaming all over the world and to our campuses. And I said, this is the most amazing website, Instagram. These people are the real deal, and they can equip you. And I just bragged on you a good while and put your Instagram up on the thing, and people were like, yeah, we're going to follow them. You know, I heard it in the lobby. Let's do that. I love it. And the next day, that would have been Monday, you posted on, oh, Jesus. You posted your favorite, can I say this?
Sure.
Okay.
It's your podcast. You can say whatever you want.
Okay. I'm a little nervous. Okay. Your favorite lubricants and sex toys. After I had just told the whole church to go follow y'all. So I had a text from from a couple of the church, like, is this the correct? It is. It is. You go places, other marriage encounters that I've had at the church don't go. How do you find the freedom to go there? And do you ever embarrass your kids?
Oh, we've embarrassed our kids numerous times.
And the embarrassment for our children come.
We've got some good stories here.
When they jump in a car of their friends and the mom or the dad is listening to the One Extraordinary Marriage show. So all of a sudden, mom or dad, turns on the car and our voices come on and our children are like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Wait,
Please turn that off. Please turn that off.
Turn that off.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I tell my children all the time, I'm like, you know what? It's our legacy.
Yeah.
To you. You may want to listen to it now. Totally get it. But when we're long gone, this is our legacy to you guys. You're going to be able to hear mom and dad talk about these difficult topics.
Thank you.
That, we're your parents, but it's going to be something that maybe you listen to, your children may listen to, or you may just do something with it that blesses others down the road. But yeah, there's been some embarrassing moments.
They've had a few moments.
Even we podcast at home and their friends are around and we're just podcasting. All of a sudden we're talking about topics and they're like, did you have to talk about that today?
I'm like, that was a topic. But to your point about our ability and our freedom to talk about that, when we were going through struggles in our own marriage, there weren't a lot of Christian couples talking about real topics in marriage. It was communication, have a conversation and date your wife was kind of the standard, here's how you save your marriage. Yes. And so we needed more. And when we stepped into releasing the One Extraordinary Marriage show, and we stepped into podcasting, our choice was, do we do what everybody else does? Or do we start to normalize these conversations for married Christian couples?
Thank you.
And so we said, we honed our craft and over time said, we are going to be that resource.
Thank you.
Where others can listen in to what it sounds like for a husband and wife who've been married to each other to have these conversations and to get real, raw, and honest.
Yeah.
And that has unlocked so many couples because we're just talking about what this looks like in marriage.
When you go places and you bring up these uncomfortable subjects like sex in the bedroom, these things you talk about, have you ever had any pushback, like from the leader, the faith leader, or the whoever brought you in, like, hey, don't go there? Or is it pretty much,
you know what?
we'll clean it up after you leave?
No, typically when we are coming into a church, it's like you. You found us. Maybe you found us on Instagram. You started listening to the podcast. You picked up 6 Pillars of Intimacy.
Yes.
So you already know where we're at.
Yes.
And because of that, we have the freedom to talk and be ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And more importantly, it's letting the pastor know. I think a lot of times when I'm first having those conversations with pastors, I'm like, hey, we're not going to go deep into this.
Mm-hmm.
Do know we'll get into topics around sexual intimacy on the podcast that people can listen to. But from the stage, we understand, like, we're not going to go like into la la land here.
Mm-hmm.
We understand the parameters. We've been followers of Jesus since 2000. So we understand, but at the same time, we do want to push that boundary and go, we need to talk about this.
Yep.
We need to bring the light into Christian couples.
Thank you.
And let's have it from the church and not from society telling them what to do, because that's been a mess.
Yeah.
So allow us that freedom. And most of our pastors that we've gotten to know over the years are they're there. They get it. They're like you. They're like, man, you changed our marriage. So
you did.
Let's go. Like, let's talk about it. Because if we don't, then those folks out there who need to hear it aren't going to get their breakthrough.
Exactly. Thank you for being so bold. Your book, 6 Pillars of Intimacy, has changed my life, changed so many couples in my church's life. I want to say to all of you who are joining us for Backstage, get this book, 6 Pillars of Intimacy. They get it Amazon? Okay. Please do me a favor, do yourself a favor, do your family a favor, and get this book and read it. It's just great. Thank you. Thank you for writing that. The catalyst for writing it was just what you had been through as a in your earlier years when you found the Lord. And then what was the tipping point where you said, okay, I think we can do this. We can actually go around the country, or we can do a podcast, or we can write what was the tipping? Was there a tipping point like, wow, I think there is a place for us in this world?
So if we go back to the podcast, and I'll start there, and then we'll talk about 6 Pillars real quick. When we go to the podcast, it was more like God was saying, you need to do this. And for us, I had another business. Alisa was home with the children. And it was more like we had a radical transformation in our own marriage. And we were sort of keeping it to ourselves. We had done a marriage getaway for our church at the time, talked about our 60-day sex challenge. I'm going to throw that out to anybody who wants to. I'm not going to go into it. You can go listen to the One Extraordinary Marriage Show, episode 1.
Episode 1, okay.
Go there.
Write that down, Will.
Go there. But we had a radical transformation, spoke about it at the church, and people are asking what's next. And Alisa and I are like, we're good. Like, there's nothing next. Like, we're raising little ones. I got my business. She's doing her thing. And about a year or so after that, we just felt like God was going like, no, you need to start talking about this. You need to start encouraging other couples. So we just stepped out in faith and bought podcasting equipment when people didn't even know what a podcast was.
True.
15 years ago, and we just
started. 15 years ago was your podcast?
2010. January 2010 was our first episode.
My Lord.
So
you were like early on. You were on the cutting edge.
I walk into rooms, even podcasting conferences and speaking, and I'll ask, and even when we're speaking around the country in rooms, and hey, how many of you knew what a podcast was 15 years ago? It's like 2 or 3 people, and so we were just there, just speaking and sharing and opening up and encouraging people. And through that, we have what we now call the One Family. That's our community. And they are the ones who got us to the point where the 6 Pillars came about, because we listened to them and we heard them, and they continue to talk and share where they are in their marriage. And then when we had that revelation in time period where it's like time to write the book, it was pretty much written.
That's great. The 6 pillars of intimacy are?
So emotional, physical,
yes,
financial, spiritual, recreational, and sexual.
Okay. And physical and sexual are different pillars of intimacy.
Correct. We separated those because we get so many emails, right? Have coaching calls with people, and they said, I want more physical intimacy with my spouse. And because it's, I think, been really corrupted in our world, that we don't like talking about sex, so we don't want to call it sexual intimacy. But it's not that we always want to be sexual with our spouse. A lot of times it's just, I want you to hold my hand again. I want you to put your arm around me. I want to have the kisses or the hugs. And hearing that over and over and over again, we realize that there's a deep need for non-sexual touch.
Yes.
Physical intimacy. While at the same time, there's also a great need for sexual intimacy, everything that's involved in your sexual activity. And so if we could separate those two, now couples and its individual spouses have a language to be able to identify what it is that they're really desiring. If I need you to touch me, I'm going to talk to you about our physical intimacy. If I want to be sexually intimate with you, I'm going to talk to you about our sexual intimacy. And I've had countless, I remember speaking to a group of wives, women at a conference, and one of the wives shared with me after, she goes, reading the book and reading the chapter on physical intimacy, I was able to hand the book to my husband and say, this is what I've been trying to tell you about non-sexual touch. I need more of this.
That's great.
So we can get to the sexual touch, but touch me and just demonstrate to me that I'm valued to you, I matter, and that you see me. And when I have that non-sexual touch, it's much easier for me to get into a place of wanting to be sexually intimate.
That's so good. Tony talked about today, when he's driving, he likes for you to put your hand on his knee or thigh, or where was it? I don't remember.
There. Right there.
Close there.
Was it thigh? Was it somewhere? Anyway,
it's right there.
It's awesome. I'm like that. What is it about us, Tony, that we just need to be touched? I guess there are men that don't want to be touched, but
sure. I mean, for myself, like I was sharing, it lets me know that Alisa is there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean this massive, like, oh my gosh, like there's this massive radical change. She's just saying, hey, I'm here. And especially in those moments when we're going through tough times, transitions, stress, I'm thinking in my mind and I'm trying to figure out things and how do I express this to Alisa? And when she just does that, it just calms me. It just is like, and we've been through enough together in our 28 years of marriage that it's just like, I'm here. And she doesn't even have to say anything, but it's just, I'm here. And when you're ready to talk, I'm ready to listen.
That's good.
So
love that. So much of your journey was born out of hardship and brokenness. And Tony, you were so transparent, just right out of the box. You don't know us. You don't know the audience. First time here.
Yeah.
And you just come right out and you say, I was addicted to pornography for
18 years.
18 years.
Yeah.
Is that tough for you to say to complete strangers, or are you just comfortable in your own skin now, knowing what the Lord has freed you from? But that's a tough thing to get up there and say.
I have no qualm sharing it to anybody. I don't care. I'll talk to husbands who are dealing with it and I'll be like, yeah, so have I. And I just, because again, I look at it and I go, I've been saved.
Yeah.
And if I hold it to myself, then I'm not allowing somebody else to realize that they can have an amazing miracle. And so I think over the years, I've become, what's the word I want to use here? I've become bold to go, yeah, I did. And I'm not going to shy away from it anymore. We got to stand up and say, we've gone through stuff.
Yeah.
And is it great that I was introduced to it at 12 years old and didn't know what I was looking at? No. Did it almost destroy our marriage? Yes. Has it? No. And this is what happened.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to sit back and be like, oh, let's sort of like, oh, maybe I'll say it, maybe I won't. Let's just get into it and let's just speak it, because there's somebody in there and we know the stats.
Yeah, they're not good.
They're not. So somebody needed to hear that today.
Oh.
And hopefully it shook them a little bit and to go, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Maybe this is why there's these cracks in my pillar,
In the
like we
pillar,
talked
yeah.
about, from my spouse.
Mm.
Because this is coming in the way, and I can't get close and connected with my spouse
Yeah.
if I'm looking at this stuff.
So you're married, but you still have a pornography addiction.
Yeah, so we got married at 23, and I had a pornography addiction for another 7 years.
Now, what's the difference in a pornography addiction and a casual pornography viewer? Is there a difference?
I think there can be, there's probably some line there. Probably some people will be like, oh, I just sort of look at it, sort of, and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not okay. It distorts what women really are and who our wife really is. An addiction is the continuous consumption of it. And there was a point in time in my life where I was viewing it probably upwards of like 8 hours a day, and then masturbating.
8 hours?
Yes. Like a lot. So when you're consuming that much, you have an addiction. And then masturbating on top of it.
Okay.
Like, that's not good. And so we are at a point, the best way I would say it is, hey, you can have a drink, you can have a beer. Great. That's your choice. Wine. Cool. I still would say it's still not healthy for you.
Yeah.
Okay. But if I drink a 12 pack every day or a bottle of wine every day, I probably have some issues.
You're in trouble. Did you feel like you said you knew he had a pornography addiction? So
I knew, even going back to our dating days, I knew that, Penthouse, Playboy, I was aware of all of that. I wasn't aware of how, like the 8 hours a day, things like that. That was not stuff I found out about until after he had been, had gotten his freedom from the addiction. But in truth, there was a huge disconnect between us. There was a lot of brokenness in our sexual intimacy. There wasn't a lot of connectedness.
Okay.
And so while it wasn't so much, hey, I'm looking at porn, let me put it out in the light. In those early years, it was, what's wrong with us? Why don't you want to connect with me? Why does it feel like every touch is about, just trying to have sex? What is going on between the two of us? And a lot of it was the dysfunction.
Yeah.
And as a marriage coach, I see the dysfunction with just a little bit of porn, let alone when it becomes a full-blown addiction.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's any safe amount of porn for a marriage, because I think what happens is it just starts the distortion. And if I can actually speak to it too, it's not just porn, it's also erotica for women. Because whether you're reading it or you're viewing it, it's changing how you see your spouse. It's changing what your expectations are. It's changing how you relate to them sexually. And we take a really strong stand. I don't think there's a place for any of it in marriage.
Okay. Did you feel like you were the other woman? Like he has all these women on the screen or magazine or whatever, and there's me.
And you can't compete.
No, you can't compete.
As a wife whose husband is looking at porn, you can't compete with the axe. You can't compete with airbrushing. You can't compete with, vocals. You cannot compete with something that is not real.
Exactly.
And it takes both husband and wife walking through a healing process to have restoration in the marriage. Because it's not just, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. It's how do we heal our relationship so that we can actually have a healthy sex life on the other side of pornography.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
So, Tony, that was a bold moment for you to say that, and what it did to the other men in the room and women, but men particularly, to, the secrets we keep and the life we live. You gave them permission to say there's freedom on the other side of this. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
The other thing that just broke my heart was the loss of your son. Oh, Lord have mercy. That he was born fully developed.
I went into labor when he was 18. When I was 18 weeks pregnant. So we actually have pictures of him. He fit in our hand.
Oh.
And but because he was so premature, like the fat hadn't developed under the skin, so he was just like this tiny little red human being.
Oh.
And I remember it was the day after our son Alex's birthday. Alex had turned 2, and that night contractions started. And I ended up going to the hospital the next day, was put on a labor and delivery floor. And yeah.
So in my experience of pastoring, when couples have experienced that, they don't stay together too much.
It's hard.
Did you ever think in that time, I don't know if we're going to make it, or did you come together to grieve?
We did not come together to grieve.
Okay.
It was a 2-year journey. 2 years. Alisa was in a depression. We had Alex. I was really angry. I remember.
Angry at God?
I was just angry.
Just angry.
I was just angry. I don't know. You know what? I was angry at God at times. I was angry at the church. I was angry about what they would say to me and to us. And if I can give one piece of advice to anybody, when somebody loses somebody like that, the best thing you can say is just like, I love you and I'm here for you.
I'm here.
And I'm gonna press in for you. But the things that were said just frustrated me. And I remember one night, and I'm not proud of this at all, but Alisa was gone. Like, it was tough to have any type. We talk about emotional intimacy, right?
There was nothing.
That's the workhorse.
That's the workhorse.
There was none. And I remember having to try to put Alex to bed. And Alisa's not moving. She's in bed a lot at this point in time, grieving, going through her own stuff. And I remember he just wouldn't stop crying, and he just kept crying and crying. And at one point, I just remember just grabbing him and just putting him up against the wall, just screaming at him. Just, that's the anger I had.
Yes.
And I just, at that point in time, I sort of came what am I doing?
Yeah.
What is going on? And I never in my, for me ever, and you may want to speak to this, but there was never any point where I was like, Alisa and I are getting divorced over this. So we're going to be separated because of this. If anything, it put me into a place of I gotta fight for my family. I didn't know how, but that was that tripping point of just hey, Alise, I need you to get back in here. What can we do? How can we help you? And it was very foggy.
Well, because I was depressed. I mean, Alex turned 2. I delivered Andrew the next day, and then it was Christmas time.
Yeah.
And Tony's cousin had delivered twins a week before Andrew died. And so there were these babies at Christmas, and I just remember being I can't. I told him at one point in time, because the family was all together, I'm I have to leave. I can't. We have to go home right now. I can't be here. And it took probably.
I'm trying to put on a happy face.
Oh, I tried. I tried really hard.
You were trying.
I tried, but somebody asked me if I wanted to hold the babies, and I'm I'm out. I'm out. And the other thing too, 20. Where are we? We're 2025, so that would have been 2024. So 21 years ago, postpartum depression wasn't talked about.
I know.
And I look back now, and I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I was grieving the loss of a child. The hormones were all over the place, and I was depressed. And so I often, when I'm speaking to women, I'm if you have suffered the loss of a child, postpartum depression isn't just for those that get to bring their baby home.
Right.
We also suffer it, and we have to give voice to this, because no mom ever expects to go home without her baby.
Oh.
No mom.
Oh, man. The Lord has brought you all through so much. You're going to see your baby again.
I know.
Absolutely.
And I know that probably didn't give you comfort when you were going through it, but later you just thank Jesus Christ that we'll see that baby again. In no time will have elapsed. You'll pick up right up where you left off.
Well, the beautiful thing is that the one that came after Andrew, Abby, funny story about her, when she was about 3, Alex would have been 6. And Alex just very offhandedly says to her, we have a baby in heaven, or we have a baby brother in heaven. And we hadn't really talked about Andrew with her. We were still kind of in that grieving, healing process. And, if anybody has ever seen a sassy 3-year-old little girl, you'll understand this story, because she turned around and she looked at me, and with just all the conviction of heaven, she looked at me and she goes, "Why did he get to go to heaven first?"
Isn't that sweet?
And it was just such a moment of going, I wouldn't have picked him to go to heaven first. But I love that Jesus.
I know.
And you have this vision of heaven. And she's the one that healed us, because she started asking all these questions Mom, do you think he likes macaroni and cheese? Is he still a baby? Like, does he crawl, or do you think he runs with Jesus? And she would ask these questions that forced us to go, we are going to see Andrew again.
And we have to address it, and we have to talk about it.
I
And maybe
love it.
some of that vulnerability, you talk about that, where it came from. And maybe it was, Abby just asking those questions and us having to realize, like, we can stuff this stuff and just not deal with it anymore.
Yep.
Or we can allow it to come up and really start to work through it. And it was probably a good 7 years after Andrew passed that we finally were able, Alisa for sure was able to go, okay.
7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I could stay here with y'all all day. I just love you, and I love what you've done in my life and the life of so many.
Thank you.
What is, of the 6 pillars, as you travel the country, what's the one pillar? First of all, why pillars and not steps or ladders or, the other stuff we use, metaphorical things? Why pillars?
So I had the revelation, and I will say this is a book that God wrote that I just got to be the author of.
Yeah.
It's the fastest book we've ever written. And so much of even the imagery really came from God. And the beautiful thing about pillars is that if we think of like Greek or Roman architecture, pillars bring incredible strength to a structure. They bring beauty, and they help to support what is going on. And the revelation that I had was these 6 pillars, these 6 concepts will do the same thing for our marriage. They will add strength. They will bring beauty. They will maintain the structure.
Yeah.
And so that was all wrapped around this idea of how do we help couples? How do we equip couples to bring strength and make their marriage something that is truly beautiful?
I love the imagery there. Pillars, which as you travel the country, there probably one pillar stands out more than others. I don't know. Is that true?
Oh yeah.
Which one is it generally?
From an audience perspective, sexual intimacy pillar.
Why is
For
that? Why do you think that is? Because I think like we're all good at it, I guess, or try to be. Why is that one so tough in the covenant?
Again, I think we go back to the vulnerability.
Okay.
I think if we go back, the church as a whole has not wanted to discuss these issues.
Okay.
And so I think most people, as you said, we get up there and we get very vulnerable.
Yeah.
So by the time we get to it, people are like, let's go. Like
Let's
you're
go.
going to really go after this. From a church perspective, what we hear from a lot of our pastors, emotional, sexual intimacy.
Yeah.
And then in the middle there, it's usually between financial intimacy and spiritual intimacy. One of those two.
Man, that financial piece, that pillar was cracked in my covenant for a long time.
Okay.
It's good now, but just anytime I got into a discussion with Denise about the financial picture, I just get frustrated and angry, and I don't even know, like, where is this emotion coming from? Why can't I just have a conversation about this? But it was just, my wife, over 40 years, has been married to 5 men. Did y'all know that she'd been married to 5 men? Yeah. I am all 5 of those.
I love that. I love that image.
I'm the immature guy. I'm the crude guy. I'm just all those guys. But finally, maybe I'm a good guy now. I don't know, or trying to be. Maybe that's the guy she's got now. I hope so.
Well, you guys are going to be celebrating
40 years.
40
That's
years.
it.
Man, can you believe that?
That's a gift.
Congratulations.
28?
28.
28, okay. Well, there were at least 3 times in that 40 I didn't know if we were going to make it.
Okay.
1 for sure. 2, I don't know. But the Lord helped us.
Yep.
And he was so ignorant, so unlearned about so many things. Well, with great people like you, you've helped me. If I'd have just had your book, well, that couldn't have happened.
You're right.
No.
I want to say to all of you, if you don't have 6 Pillars of Intimacy, go get it today. Today. Get it. And then go to the website, oneextraordinarymarriage.com.
Mm-hmm.
Get on there. So many tools. And the podcast, good gracious. If you've had need to be healed, like Denise and I did, man, this couple, you're a gift to the world.
Thank you.
And I thank you.
Thank you so
Lord
much.
bless y'all.